Okay, here we are with 6.2, social development. Students will be able to apply the impact of socialization on development of infants and children by reading Harlow's study on attachment. So when we get to Harlow, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him because you're going to do that for your assignment today. But I'll give you a brief introduction. So we have temperament. Temperament is your behavioral style. It is influenced by heredity. So you may see that you have similar behaviors to your parents. But environment does play a role. You can have parents that may tend to be more aggressive, but you're raised in a very loving environment. You may still end up being more loving than aggressive. However, we do know that maternal deprivation, lacking mother's care, has a huge impact on temperament, that the more loving and caring that a mother is, then the bigger influence it has on temperament. And this is because of basic trust. So basic trust is created because of the fact that as an infant, we become securely attached if we see the world as predictable and reliable. So if you cry and you get fed, you tend to do better than if you cry and your needs are not met. Attachment is a relationship between the infant and caregiver. Harlow did a big study on attachment, which is what you're going to do for your assignment. And essentially what he realized is contact comfort. That this idea of simulation and reassurance is derived from physical touch. Meaning that the monkey you see over here, this is a terry cloth monkey. So it's a soft monkey. No food. This monkey is not soft, but has food. And as you can see, the monkey prefers overall the soft monkey. And then just reaches over to the other one for food. Originally, it was believed that the reason why babies form attachments to their mothers is because of the food. And what we realize now is that is not accurate. Mary Ainsworth did a whole big study on attachment. And what she discovered was what we see here, right? So we have separation anxiety, which we see is when children seek closeness and display distress on separation. So I took Jack to a play place the other day, and there was definitely separation anxiety happening. He did not want me to leave his side. It was a new place. He wasn't familiar with it. There was lots of kids. But these are the different types of attachment right here. Oh, I put I've got stranger anxiety and separation anxiety. Okay, sorry. So these are the different types. So the first one is going to be secure attachment. And this is what you want, right? This is our life goal, is that they may be a little upset. They may cry when you leave, but they're happy when you get back, right? So distress and then happiness. Yay. The second one is avoidant. No distress and indifferent when the parent returns. Third is going to be resistant. Cling to mother before she leaves, but then shows anger when the parent comes back. 4 is disorganized, disoriented, shows distress when the parent leaves, and then may alternate when the parent returns between happiness, indifference, and anger. And then stranger anxiety also begins around 8 months and is where you start to fear strangers. And this is pretty common for most infants to go through around 8 months of age. There are 3 different types of parenting styles. We have the authoritarian, which focuses on rules and obedience. Permissive is when the children are typically in charge. And then authoritative is demanding and responsive. The way that I distinguish between authoritarian and authoritative is this has an N, and I think N equals no. So that's how I distinguish between the two of them. Authoritative is the most effective for American children. So we tend to see, now that is not all cultures, I'm talking American. We tend to see parents that have high expectations, but yet are understanding and reasonable when they need to be. Gender development. I have a lot on this slide, so I'm just going to kind of annotate as we go. Gender, though, you need to know the definition of gender. It is the biological and social characteristics that define male and female. Something interesting about gender is that out of all of our chromosomes, 45 of them are the exact same. There's only one chromosome, and that's the one that differs between male and female that is different. Other than that, every single chromosome is the same. Gender neutral. Kind of cool, huh? So some stereotypes, physical differences, aggression, social power, and social connectiveness. We know that women tend to have more social connectedness. We know that men tend to be more aggressive. We know that there are physical differences between the men and women. That is just a fact. The differences between women and men is women have the XX chromosome, men have the XY chromosome, and that is what gives the men more testosterone. Ladies, you have testosterone as well, but that is what increases the testosterone in women is the Y, or in the men, and is Y chromosome. There are some brain differences between men and women. We know that the hippocampus, amygdala, and gray matter all vary between men and women. The nurture of gender. So these are some words that you are going to need to know. Gender roles are the expectations on men and women's behaviors. Gender identity is your individual sense on gender. So that's how you as a person feel about your gender, is your gender, your gender identity. And then social learning theory is where we learn social behavior by observing and imitating. So what do you see happen? Do you see somebody hold the door for somebody? Do you see some gender play with specific toys? Then you may do the same thing. If you have an older brother or an older sister, then you may be more determined to play with the same things that they play with because that's what you're observing and imitating. Parents and peers. So how much influence do you get from your parents? Actually, quite a bit. So I thought this was interesting based off our discussion on IQ. Is Rosenwig and Dreck did a study on rats and found if you are in an enriched environment, then you have a thicker brain cortex and heavier brain. So that does not necessarily mean it's going to change your IQ, but what it does do is it increases your knowledge and ability. right? The more neural networks you have, the more things you're going to know and the more things you can do. So even though you may not be able to change your IQ per se, it doesn't mean that you can't build upon your knowledge and build upon your ability. We know that enriching people in their environment increases the amount of neurons that are built. So that's important about the synapses that you have. And then we have Peter and Alexander Newbar. And what they found is that hindsight is how much we credit or blame our parents. So when we look back on certain situations, we may say, wow, you know what? Now that I'm looking back on that, I understand why mom and dad were so hard on me, because they were worried about me. Or you might look back and do something completely opposite. Like, wow, now looking back on that, mom and dad really overreacted to that situation. And then Howard Gardner did a study on who had more influence on the teenager. Whether it was your parents or your peers or on your development in general. And some good news here. Parents do have a pretty solid influence on you as a person. They're going to influence your education, your discipline. And when I mean discipline, I mean your self-discipline, like how disciplined are you? Your responsibility. Orderliness. Charitableness. And most importantly, which I think is kind of cool, how do you interact with authority figures? Peers do have some influence on you. It's on your cooperation. How well do you work with others? Popularity. And inventing styles of interaction. So how do you interact with others? So, good thing for your parents. Overall, they have a much stronger influence than some of your peers, even though at this point in your life, they may not feel that way. And that is it for today.